Good afternoon. Welcome back to Sold Out Chat, the gathering for marketing, tech experts, and leaders that want to help their organization get to sold out status. I'm Ollie, the marketing associate here at Above Promotions. Also joining us today is my colleague, Kay, the marketing coordinator here at Above Promotions. For those joining us for the first time, we cover tools, innovations, policies, and strategies each month to help brands sell out products or reach capacity with your booked services. In our last episode, we discussed removing ineffective marketing tools and strategies with our CEO, Ebony Vaz. If you missed it, please visit our YouTube channel to replay the dynamic conversation. Today, we will be discussing creating brand ambassadors using existing resources. So for today's chat, we will be joined by Ebony Vaz. She is the founder and CEO of the Above Promotions and one of the few marketers in the world with an engineering degree and published research focused on human behaviors and statistical data. Hi, Ebony. Good afternoon.
Hi, Ollie. How's it going? Hi, Kay. Hi, Rachel. Glad that we are in this place and getting everything started. Yeah, last month it was just you and I, Ollie. So
That's
it's
right.
just going to feel like a big party this month.
It is. Yeah, so speaking of that, we are joined by Raechel Canipe, an accomplished marketing and sales executive with over a decade of experience cultivating brand ambassadors and leading organic brand advocacy strategies. And as the vice president of marketing and sales at Revstar, she spearheads market expansion and harmonizes sales and marketing efforts. Rachel also serves as the founder and CEO of Women in Tech and Entrepreneurship. Hi, Rachel. Welcome to Sold Out Chat.
Hi, thanks so much for the warm introduction. And thank you, Oliver. Thank you, Ebony, for having me here today. This is one of my all-time favorite topics. I'm so excited to get into it with you all.
Thank you. You're all welcome. We are also excited to have you here, and we can start. And just wanted to tell everyone that in this ever-evolving digital age, building a solid and authentic brand presence is important. So for any company looking to thrive. And today, we will explore how companies can use their existing resources to bring out their potential and transform them into brand ambassadors.
Brand ambassadors are the voices that can champion products and services and influence customers' purchasing decisions.
That's right, Kay. So thank you for that. Before we dive in, I want to remind the audience to stay until the end for valuable upcoming opportunities. So be sure to listen all the way through the details.
Thank you, Ali. So let's unlock the secrets through my first question. So, Ebony, I'd like to ask, what are the examples of existing resources that companies can leverage to develop brand ambassadors?
So, first off, I just want to say welcome again, Rachel. This is like sitting in an official coffee house. So let's just chat it up and have some good conversations for everybody. So this first question is it's not a short answer. There are so many different ways to engage and to create brand ambassadors and how to leverage them. And I will definitely say let's dive through the list of some of the top ones that we look at Above Promotion. So of course, everyone looks at social media influencers, but I think people forget about the fact that corporate social responsibility initiatives are really excellent ways of getting brand ambassadors. I know for me personally, I have supported different companies that have come out to support causes that were in line with mine. So that's a great way to get brand ambassadors. When we think about, of course, employee advocacy programs, customer advocacy programs, and how those can look and they can be shaped into different formats. So we see employee resource groups happening in corporate companies. We see customer surveys that generate customer user groups and communities for new products. So those are also some clever ways of getting your brand ambassadors. But I think some of the things that we've really seen, especially through the course of COVID, whether it was online are in person, which was exclusive events and experiences. So creating something like that is very different, very unique, very specific to that brand, and then just making it so private that people feel special for being a part of it. So, what are some examples of resources companies can use that you think of, Raechel?
Yeah, I generally tend to think very organically, very leanly about this. I know that cost is a concern for every company, and especially when we're talking about justifying, an ROI for a marketing budget. Um, I find that organic and lean strategies tend to work really, really well in this space. And the other thing that I think about is while influencers can be a very powerful vehicle for creating brand awareness, we also have a consumer base who's becoming increasingly kind of jaded about influencers, more suspicious of them. And so, what we want to do is kind of strike that harmony between that authenticity of our messaging and still maximizing the impact and the reach there. For me personally, I always feel that this starts with my favorite resource, the best part of any business, your people, your employees. They really set the example. What we all know as marketers is that consumers are very suspicious of what we say about ourselves from our brand platform. But when we see employees that are putting on the jersey for the brand, that are really excited about it, that have wonderful things to say about the business that they're working in, that are out representing that business well in the community, that has a ripple effect. Kind of a halo effect around the positive image of the brand and the brand awareness. And it can also be that very first resource that you activate as you work on activating your customers as ambassadors for your brand. It for me and my experience, having those employees be really big champions as a resource in this space. It's easier to do than it seems. If you have a great culture, if you have great people on your team, you probably have employees that are already out there doing this on your behalf. They just may not be resourced as well as they could be. So for me, this looks like creating easy to use templates for employees that are maybe not marketing employees, but they want to kind of sing the virtues of the brand. Now they get a brand kit. We actually give them an official title of like, hey, I see you out there, Ebony, you're representing this company so well, and we want to help you take this to the next level. Would you be, a brand champion for us? We think that that's a torch you'll carry well. And so we're giving them the honorary distinction, and then we're empowering them as the marketing side of the business with a kit that has brand control. It gives them flexibility to be their authentic self. Canva is a really good tool for this because you don't have to have that design expertise to use Canva. And from the company side, you can lock down fonts, you can lock down colors, you can lock down the kind of assets that can be used to make it a less overwhelming tool for that individual that maybe they want to make their own special announcement post about something that's going on, or they want to spread the word about open job opportunities at this growing business, and they don't necessarily have that design background to make a really cool slick. Now they can go and do that. This operates twofold. Getting this area of the advocacy started early shows your audience that you're a growing business, that you value people, that your people are excited about what you're doing, and it gets your customers hyped up too. So I've been at RevStar for about 2 months. We just started doing stuff like this, and I've had people coming back to me saying, wow, you guys are really growing. Well, we've been growing the whole time before I got here. We just hadn't been empowering others to share that message on our behalf. And now that we're doing that, it's creating additional positive perception with our customers, and it's making our employees feel good. They're so important to everything that we do. Now we're kind of shining that spotlight on them and allowing them to step into that role for us, which takes a lot of trust. But that's really my starting point. Obviously, resources in terms of tools and systems like Canva and social media and internal education become really important there too. But my favorite all-time biggest resource is people.
So I think to kind of circle back to something you said there earlier before we go into the next question about industry specific, but you said being authentic. And one of the things that companies are doing now is they are utilizing platforms to actually help their employees to easily share onto social media. But what we're starting to notice now is that some companies are going to the opposite extreme to where it's almost mandatory for employees to share certain posts per week. And I think that's where it becomes unauthentic. And so there has to be this balance of, encouraging your team to share, but you also need to know that they actually co-sign with all the stuff that's being shared. So I definitely think that is something to come back to and note. So I'm going to move on to the next question. I'm going to take this from UK. Well, how do you feel, Raechel? Do you feel like this works for every company? Are there any industry specifications that you're thinking about when you're developing the ambassador program?
Yeah, I personally am of the belief that this can work for any industry, but I think that there are industries that have a lot of additional considerations, especially in highly regulated industries. So think finance, healthcare. In these spaces, it becomes really important to have a really strong educational component to what you do. So, for those employees that are energized around this mission, to your point, you cannot force this kind of mission on anyone. Number one, it doesn't respect the autonomy and individuality of your workforce. They are not extensions of your brand by default. They have to agree and consent and be excited about it. So when you've got that targeted pool of people who are excited about it and interested in it, now it just becomes really important to give them a deep level of education if you're in a regulated industry as to what is and is not okay to share on social media. Similarly, if you are working in a space where there's a lot of IP, a lot of secret squirrel kind of projects going on. I worked in defense contracting for a space where, we had top secret clearance and there are a lot of things that could not be shared. So providing really good education if you're in a highly regulated space, having really good policy and procedure in place to make sure that we're not sharing things that are, sensitive business intelligence, proprietary, regulated, and can't be out there. And that we are equipped with a framework as employees to really understand that. But in general, this is a tool that works in every space. At the end of the day, every business is made up of people. And there's a lot of social proof that goes into this kind of campaign. As a potential customer, I want to see people like me advocating for the brand, sharing their stories about the brand in a positive light. And so, that can start with employees, and then you can use that same enthusiasm with the employees to start engaging the customer base to participate in this as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there are a lot with financial healthcare. There's a lot of regulations, of course. Despite with the young man who thought he could share DoD secrets, there are some places where you just can't share. But I think as we take a look back and we think about some things to consider, yeah, of course, I think we can go back to what you said about earlier. Like people have to have the resources to be able to allocate to this, right? Smaller companies tend to have to be very nimble and very thrifty when they think about how and how they're going to resource and what resources they're going to put forth and which ones they're going to use. I also think too it's a cultural thing, right? So what works for influencing here in the US does not work in other countries. And you can see that, and as I know for us, as we continue to expand into Latin America, Central America, we see like the different contrasts and how people handle brands and brands interactions. And so I definitely think that people need to also consider like the cultural differences um, when they're considering brand ambassador programs. And I think that it's also too about the product and the service itself, because I think if we were just saying like how, I mean, no offense to like some of these large peanut butter brands, but I don't know how much more excited you can make people feel about peanut butter. But there is you know but there is like things that are happening in other spaces that are doing like innovative things and solutions are coming forth, and that makes that lift just a little bit easier when you're doing something innovative than if you were just doing something that was the norm, nothing too exciting.
Yeah, when it comes to
Mhm.
the human stories in those spaces as well, right, Ebony? So, I'm a big peanut butter brand, but maybe to your point about innovation, maybe I'm sensitive to the fact that the number of peanut allergies is rising and becoming more severe. So, is there something that I can get involved in that space, either that's, a way that I'm innovating my manufacturing process to create less exposure from my product for other people who may have those sensitivities? Are there other causes I can get involved with? Even to things as simple as, being able to tell, I think a lot of the organic consumer brands that are out there do this, and it can sometimes be a little hokey, but when it's done well, it's really compelling. So, I see these personal health journey stories. I was taking care of a family member or a child who had these severe food allergies or limitations, and I couldn't find what I needed. So I went out and solved it, and this becomes part of the story. And I'll tell you that even for us as a software development agency, we tell the story of how we had our own challenges that we have used software development to solve, and they're not just business challenges, they're human challenges. People drowning in spreadsheets, right? The demands of lots of different concurrent projects and client needs. Here's how we use tech to make a better world for the employees that work with us, not just for our customers. So there is some element of that personal storytelling that can be used, and that's very lean. It's low resource, right? But it can be hard to get the messaging right. It can be really hard not to come across as insincere. It really has to come from the heart, and the actions that the brand displays have to be 100% in alignment with the story that we're sharing.
So I
Right.
know we spent a bit of time. I'm sorry, Kay. I'm just jumping all in, and I'm glad you are back on this discussion, Kay. But this is Rachel, so like she and I kind of go back and forth on the phone. But I have to go here because I know we've been talking about success stories from as brand ambassadors by using the employees. What I would love to do, and I agree, you are definitely elevating RevStar, but I need to switch because what you're doing with women tech and entrepreneur, I mean, girl, you have really scaled your organization, and you have really implemented uh, to me, what I think is a really good blueprint of being able to cover the state of Florida and build a community. And so I really would love to hear, like, what are the tools that you're using to kind of do that, to really create these awesome brand ambassadors for WTE?
Yeah, thank you for the kind words. Women in tech and entrepreneurship is something that I'm really deeply passionate about and moved by. And, I think going back to the authenticity, I think one thing that um, is an advantage in that kind of brand advocacy space for women in tech is that my story is a really common one. It's one that a lot of women and gentlemen in this space can understand and relate to, and it resonates with them on a personal level. So I think number one, that becomes very helpful in terms of helping with word of mouth and grassroots movement. I think number two, I have to give credit where credit is due. And I'm just incredibly fortunate to be surrounded by really passionate, energized, and helpful women who want this to be successful. And part of creating brand advocacy, we've talked about, education and empowerment. Part of it is empowering people to help you and help your brand and tell your story. And whether we're talking about volunteers, which for women in tech, we rely 100% on volunteers. We're fully bootstrapped. I self-fund most of what we do, and then we have in-kind sponsors for everything else, but there's certainly no money for payroll for anyone at this point. But whether you're energizing a volunteer base or an employee base, it's about empowerment. So in my case, that becomes really easy with women in tech because so many women in this space understand it implicitly. When they ask what I need help with, it's consistently saying, I need help connecting more women with the mission. So having a clear ask for people that helps them go out and take action is also a really big part of creating that success. So to kind of give you an idea of how I thought this would grow versus how it actually grew, I thought that I would have to travel the state and do pop-up events in each market. And I've been traveling the state for a long time and pretty much every job that I've ever had. And I already have a good network. So I thought maybe those networks would help a little bit with this. But what actually happened is I did the first public launch event in Tampa, and I had women from Jacksonville, Tallahassee, and Orlando show up. So rather than going out and trying to find women in those other communities, they actually ended up coming to us. And this is where the empowerment comes in, right? We very intentionally wanted to go with a decentralized member-led model. A lot of that is, kind of an ambassador strategy, right? We're empowering people to go out and represent the brand and take leadership in their community because I can't do it all by myself, right? I don't have enough coverage to be in every community. And I also don't have the arrogance to believe that I understand what women in Orlando need or what women in South Florida need. Every community is going to have a different focus. So when those women came to Tampa, I was already ready with the right tools to say, hey, we want to make this easier for you. You're driving all the way to Tampa. How can we empower you to lead launching a chapter in your market? And some of this is building the plane in flight. So my volunteers who are leading these chapters know that we're working on building certain things. But it really comes back to the empowerment of saying, hey, let me resource you. Here's the framework. Here's what our mission is and what our events look like. And this guideline that we never charge membership dues. Now you're carrying this torch for us. That's what this looks like. And then we put the engine and the resources behind that in terms of marketing assets and other tools. Hopefully I answered the question well.
You did, because what I heard was one, well, let me tell you what my observation is and what I've heard. One is when I look at a brand ambassador program, I'm looking at the brand image. And you started off with a bang and you've been able to maintain a really great image. I hear customer involvement and engagement. You didn't come in and say, like, this is what we're going to do. This is all we're going to do. I don't care if you want to do anything else. You got everyone involved to actually engage and buy in. And then I'm also hearing the fact that you knew who the target audience was and you knew the mission from the beginning. And then finally, if I go back to what we said earlier, that cultural difference, and I even relate that to regional differences. And so you recognize that in the state of Florida, we can say that. I don't know about other states, but in the state of Florida, every region has its own flavor. And you respected that going in, and you allow each region to work within that. And so that's what I hear. So I believe you've answered the question. And I'm so
Thank you for summarizing that so much more eloquently than I could.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that insight, Rachel. It's really great. Are there any challenges or risks when implementing a brand ambassador program?
Oh yeah. I think number one, it can be low resource. It depends on how you decide to approach it as an organization, but it still takes resources. And, the resources that I immediately always think about are, you need the teammates and the energy and the labor time to develop the program well, to develop the educational component of that. So that may look like helping employees understand why their engagement makes such a big difference, and if they want to engage, how do they do that? And if you're in a space, for instance, when I was in the defense contracting space, what can you share versus can't you share? And additionally, sometimes it looks like what content is helpful and how does that look? And so there's this continuous coaching process that goes on. I'll say, within our executive suite at Revstar, we have a lot of people who are very involved in the community, and they do all these wonderful events, and they're excited about this brand advocacy program that we're doing, and they're setting the example from the top down. If you don't have executive buy-in for brand advocacy, that can be a big obstacle too. And then the coaching side of that, sometimes we'll get a picture from an event or something that it's not something that is going to resonate with the audience, or it's not telling it's telling a good story about that person individually, and we want them to put it out in the world and share what they're so excited about, but helping them understand why it may or may not get reposted in brand channels is another thing that needs a lot of attention, needs a lot of coaching and education, so that what you don't do is create a world where you've gotten people really excited about being brand advocates, and then they feel like they're going out and they're doing all this really great work, and marketing is ignoring their efforts, right? They're now not being rewarded for the efforts that they put in to help the brand, or they're being overlooked in some way. So those are some obstacles that can definitely come up. Other obstacles, we have industries that we work with where they may not be in tech, there may not be as much social media literacy. And so for employees that do want to get involved in brand advocacy, you have to find other avenues, other platforms that work really well for them, that they feel more comfortable and confident in, or you have to identify people in your organization that are excited enough about it to develop a new skill set. And you have to help resource them to learn how to navigate social media. So in past lives, I've spent a lot of time working with employees on, what is social selling? How do algorithms work on social media? How do you make this post get the most engagement that you can? So those can be challenges, but they're really great opportunities to help your customer base feel engaged, to help your employees not only feel like, now I get to represent this brand, but also, hey, now we're giving you a new skill set that helps you in your career. So you can create these win-win dynamics out of what might be perceived as a challenge otherwise. Now, if you're looking to get into the kind of brand advocacy that involves influencer dollars, you get into challenges that I think Ebony's really well prepared to help clients with. Things like, how do I track the return on this influencer spending? How do I find the right influencers to partner with for my brand? And so in those cases, when we run into knowledge gaps or challenges with how to navigate paid engagement, I always really strongly suggest that you take the time to find a really good partner who lives in that world, who is expert at that, who can help you function and guide and develop the right strategy for those paid engagements and for measuring the outcome of those engagements.
Those were really
Yes,
great
right.
insights. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thank
Mm.
you.
Go ahead, Kay.
And right, yeah, thank you. So, yeah, just wanted to speak about the influencer marketing. Like when you do that, we should also like ensure that this partners that we get, like they genuinely align with the company values that we have or the company has, so that they don't leave a negative impact on the brand's reputation, you know. And then also they should be able to, like, you know, on Facebook, Instagram, it's very important that they do a disclosure and also the transparency, just to make sure we comply with the advertising regulations and maintain the trust with the audience, so that the audience will not think that, hey, just because this is paid, they are saying good things about this certain brand. So it should be like properly disclosed when doing their promotions for the brand.
Absolutely so important.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you, Kay. Thank you so much for that. And we learned a lot from this session today, so I'm really thankful. So we wanted to thank again Rachel today for being our guest today. So thank you, Rachel.
Thank you all so much. This was really fun. I hope that our guest here got some value out of the conversation today. And I know I always enjoy chatting with Ebony, so it was awesome catching up with you.
Thank you, definitely. And we hope to see you again soon. Just to give a quick recap for everyone. So we did ask Rachel about some examples of existing resources. And she said that using your employees to set an example. She said also about brand champion as your existing resources to use them, and also making sure that they are authentic and providing really good education to these ambassadors because there are regulations. And what I really like about today's session is Rachel told us that every business is made up of people, and also consider uh, culture differences by Ebony. So also I did really like Rachel giving us stories and examples about tools that help the women in tech and entrepreneurship. So thank you for that, like the member-led model and empowering people to go out and promote the brand. So also, with the challenges or some risks, Rachel told us that continuous coaching that happens and marketing are overlooking them. So also there are problems with not so much social media literacy with the ambassadors. So I hope that everyone with this discussion has been helpful and that we have allowed you to take the first step in checking your existing resources and plan to create your brand ambassadors. So we also want to thank those that tuned in. And if you joined us late, do not worry. We will have this recording available on our website, abovepromotions.com.